Welcome to part 2 of the Cupcake tutorial series. In this one we will focus more on the wrapper, so how to create that pattern, and also the first layer of the liquid. If you like this tutorial series, please leave a like, a comment or subscribe. I'd enjoy any one of those, and let's dive right in. So now we have our original cupcake shape, right? It was quite easy actually, and it is still quite low res. Well, if we delete this, right, you can turn this into a lower resolution cupcake if you'd like. We're gonna make this a bit more realistic. Then, how do we make this outer piece? It's a bit more advanced, right? Well, the basic foundation, the shape, is the same. It's a circle. So let's hit Shift A, mesh circle, and I'm going to set my vertices to 60, right? And why I'm not pricking 8 is because I need more geometry in this paper piece to move parts of it out and other parts in. Okay, so 60 is the way to go here. And I'm going to press tab. I'm going to press 1 to see just what's going on. How many vertices do we have everywhere? This is looking fine. It looks like it's about the same. And then we are going to press ES. Okay, and then somewhere like there. Beautiful. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to grid fill this the same way we grid fill our cupcake to create this top. I want to grid fill this inner piece as well. Alt Z, by the way, brings you to X-ray mode. You can see through your meshes. Very useful in this case. And I'm going to grid fill this because I will still use a subdivision modifier, right? But I also want my outer edge to be tweakable later. And with tweakable, I mean is that we're going to move every other vertex out. Okay, and I'll show you that in a second. Let's first grid fill this inner part. So double click, F3, grid fill, right? There we go, beautifully filled. And then we have an outer edge that is not affected by that at all, right? So we can still do whatever we want with that. Now I'm going to press 1 again, vertex select, F3, and let's go to checker deselect. Find that, checker deselect. That's going to deselect every other vertex that we have selected, right? And we can, for example, change that to be 2 deselected, 3 deselected, 4 deselected, 4 deselected, 2 selected. So, right, you can play around with that a lot. Having it in 1 and 1 means exactly what we want to have, right? Very beautiful. Now, I'm going to scale this in, press S, all the way to our starting point. There, right? Beautiful. Not completely touching, but close, okay? Now this may look a little bit sharp, but it's going to get smoother when we add a subdivision modifier. Alright, now let's select that outer edge by double clicking on it in 2, edge select mode. Press Alt Z, go out of X-ray, EZ, there we go, and scale that up a little bit. Move it down a little bit, GZ, something like that. And now we can press tab, go out of edit mode, go to the modifier tab, right there, add a subdivision surface. Beautiful, and shade smooth, for example. Right, so you can see instantly this is looking way smoother, even too smooth perhaps. Right, so let's press tab. Let's select one of our vertical edges, and we don't have to manually select all of these edges to, for example, give them a little bit of a bevel. We can just select one of them, go to select at the top, select similar, and then similar length. There we go. So now all of the edges we want to sharpen up are selected, right? So just press Ctrl B to bevel that to something like that, for example, right? And that is looking way more like a beautiful little cupcake paper, all right? Amazing. Okay, so a subdivision of 1 works fine. I'm going to keep that. Let's see, 2. Looks a little bit smoother. So let's set this to 2 in the render. It's totally fine. Let me remove this. And then we want to blend this in a little bit with our cupcake. Okay, which means that let's just move everything out of our cupcake for a sec. So select our paper, press tab, press Alt Z, double click on the top edge, press Alt Z again. Just move this outside of our mesh for a sec, right? Just chill a little bit. So how do we wrap this a bit more towards our mesh? Okay, well, there is a modifier. Click on add modifier, and search for a shrink wrap. And we can now select our cupcake to be wrapped. Okay. So by default, it's going to wrap everything, right? It's going to wrap everything to the mesh, but we can also wrap only, for example, the bottom part, right? That is more in line with the shape of our cupcake. How do we only make this affect the bottom part? Well, in the Shrinkwrap modifier, there is a vertex group option. And a vertex group is a same word, a same thing as a weight paint group. Okay? And you may not know what either of these are, but basically what it means is that we can select a part of our mesh, assign it to a vertex or weight group, and use that as the part for the shrink wrap, right? So how do we do that? Well, in the object data properties panel, the green little triangle, we've got a vertex group section, right? So just hit the plus sign, and let's just name this shrink wrap, okay, by double clicking. Then in edit mode, right, we can start selecting edges or vertices that we want to assign to this group, right? Now that's a little bit of manual work, right? Some selecting to do. I don't really like that. Plus another thing is that we don't really have the geometry to really blend nicely, right? To make this blend from bottom to top. Quite annoying. So what we can do is add more geometry. Okay, so let's head up to our modifiers and let's disable this for a sec. And let's just see how it looks if we apply our subdivisions. Right, so this is a very uneven mesh, right? So these vertices are way too stretched up and still not enough to blend this together nicely. So what we can do is press tab, and in edit mode we can add a few loops right there. Just scroll up until you think that's enough to blend. Okay, something like this, right? Left click, escape, and there we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we do add geometry, but it's needed to blend properly. All right. So now we can actually go into a weight paint mode. All right, weight paint mode, right? For your object mode in the top left corner, we can swap that out to be weight paint. And weight paint, let's go to the object data properties again, is going to be related with our vertex group. Okay, because a weight paint is going to draw a weight on the vertex, and that vertex will be in your weight paint group, your vertex group, right? So let's say I draw this right here. And so let's go to edit mode and just click anywhere in your screen, and let's click select on our shrink wrap. You can see that the weight paint we just applied automatically also added it to be our vertex group. All right, and now every vertex has a different weight. You can see the weight right here in the item panel. This one has 1, for example, 0.99, and the further it gets, the more blue it gets, the closer the value comes to 0. So a 0 is 0 weight, will not be affected in this vertex group. And the red color is 1, which means fully affected, right? And you can make a nice blend between things that way. With F, we can increase our brush size. All right. And then we can just draw there at the bottom of our mesh to tell Blender what we want to have affecting our Shrinkwrap modifier. Right? Something like that. If you think this is too harsh of a transition, we have a little blur tool there at the top left. Select the blur, and we can just blur this out, right? Just go over that edge, that beautiful smooth transition until you are satisfied with your results, right? Something like that. Amazing. Now let's go back to object mode, and let's go back to our Shrinkwrap modifier. Let's re-enable that. And now we can set our weight paint group in our vertex group settings as Shrinkwrap. Alright, so you can see that now only the bottom part is going to be fully Shrinkwrap around our mesh, and the top part less. Okay? And we can just set a bit of offset so it doesn't intersect there at the bottom, right? Just move it up, shift, hold shift, and move this up to the right a little tiny bit like that. Quite beautiful. Alright, nice.
So let's say we want the top part to be a little bit affected as well. We can hit the brush and set the weight to be like 0.2. Now we can draw even the top part to be a little bit blue, or perhaps 0.1. There we go. 0.1, just draw that in a little bit. Add a little bit of weight there. Something like that. Okay, this bottom part, I'm not sure where it went. Let's just add that back. And let's blur everything out a little bit again. There we go. Beautiful blurry modifier. And this does not have to be perfect. Remember, we're creating a cupcake, right? Can be a little bit organic. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Something like this. Beautiful. Let's go back to object mode. And now the top will shrink wrap just a little bit as well, which will make it a little bit more smooth. Beautiful. All right. So that is actually looking quite decent. So let's add a bit of randomness here, right? Nothing is perfect in the real world. If you want to achieve realism, you need to know that in real life nothing is perfect, okay? It's just not happening. So let's just go to edit mode, select a little bit of a random vertex, just select one vertex, press O, enable proportional editing, and just press G. And let's move this up a little bit, like that. This one, move this down just a tiny bit. This one, move it down. This one, move it up a slight bit there. And this is too much. Let's move that down just a little bit. And this one, move it up a little tiny bit. Right. Just so it is not completely straight, I'd say. Something like that. Just a little bit already helps a lot, right? Make sure that they do not intersect your mesh there. Beautiful. Alright, I think this looks quite alright for the paper and the cupcake by default. So let's continue with the next step. Alright, next step is going to be this little liquid on top. And it's quite a thick liquid. And there's two ways to do liquid really, or there's more ways, but two ways that we are going to use, right? I want to show you the bottom one with simple hard surface modeling. And I want to show you the top one, which is more advanced, with an actual liquid simulation. Alright, so let's layer this up. Let's start with a mesh, right? So on top of our cupcake, I want to add a new mesh. And I'm going to do this by just selecting my cupcake, pressing tab, and I want to add an object at the center point there. So press 1 to go to vertex select and select your top vertex. Just click on it. Shift S, cursor to select it. Okay, so what is a cursor? A cursor in Blender is the 3D cursor, and it will define where new objects will spawn in Blender, right? So you can change the location of that with Shift right clicking. Be careful though, because placing the 3D cursor is not something you can Ctrl Z and do, right? So you will have to just manually set that back in that case. So we can hit Shift S on our vertex, cursor to select it, and then we'll move it to a specific target location. And if I now add a new object, Shift A, mesh, a circle perhaps, of, let's say 12 vertices, and then it will be spawned at that new 3D cursor location, right? Which is on top of our mesh. Beautiful. So I'm going to add a circle here, and I want to recreate this part, which is like a little flowy kind of shape, I guess. And a little bit of a rounding going inwards like that. Beautiful. Something like that. And this goes round over as well, like that. Something like that is what we are going to create, okay? So let's go to top view, numpad 7. If you don't have a numpad, you can change your key mapping in Blender as well by going to edit, preferences, and then finding the key map section and then just changing it to something you can actually use. And you can also just click on the Z there at the 3D gizmo and it will bring you to top view 2. And then I'm actually going to do something a little bit new, right? And the reason why is because I want to show you how useful this can be. And what I'm talking about is an array modifier, right? A circular array. So let's go to edit mode. I want to create just one section of this piece, right? For example, just this section, like a pizza slice, right? If you array a pizza slice around, you will get a full pizza as well, right? For example, 6 pieces. So let's create a pizza slice out of this. Which means that we need to have a center point as well, the pointy part of the pizza. So press E, there we go. And if you have your cursor right there at the center, you can just press Shift S, selection to cursor. Right, and then that new point will move there. Beautiful. And now we can just connect it to, for example, this one. So select both vertices of this one and the one you want to connect it to, and press F again. And then just select all 4 of your vertices and press F to form a new face. All right, then the other vertices we can just delete. So with this selected, press Ctrl I to invert your selection. Press Del to delete, right? Delete vertices, and we'll end up with a little pizza slice. All right, now how do we array this? Well, there's 2 things we need. One is a new modifier, add modifier, search for array. And we don't want this to be a relative offset because that's just going to be in a single axis. So uncheck that, but we want this to be an object offset. Unfold that. We need an object to offset this. And the reason why we choose for an object is because we want to have a rotation-based array, right? We want to rotate this around an origin. Now we need an origin object and an object we can give a rotation to, right? So press Shift A and just find empty and plain axis. This empty is just gonna do what it says. It is going to be empty. It's not gonna be used for anything else but this array modifier. So rename it to be array, right? Array, there we go. Then let's see, how do we rotate this? Well, we know that if we press Shift A, mesh, and circle, we know that we used 12 vertices, which means that if we have 2 edges per pizza slice, right? We're basically dividing that 12 by the 2 pieces we have, which means that we are going to end up with 6 pizza slices, right? 6 slices of our liquid. I keep referring to pizza because it's just easier. So let's Ctrl Z that to get rid of that circle. Now we know that we at least need 6 slices. So how much do we need to rotate our circular array then? How many rotations per piece? How many degrees per piece? Well, in Blender, it's all very easy. There's like a built-in calculator. We can just type what we want to do, right? For example, a full circle is 360 degrees, right? That is just how it works. So which means that if we have 6 slices, we want this rotation to be 360 divided by 6. It is quite an easy calculation, but if we don't want to calculate this, Blender has a built-in calculator for us, right? Which means that in the rotation value of our item transform tab, right? We can just 360 divided by 6. Beautiful. Okay. So now we have that set up. We can just go back to our pizza slice, set this to be our array object, and set our count to be 6. There we go. 6 pizza pieces. Now the fun thing with this is that we can now just change whatever we want in this shape of our 1 pizza piece, and the rest will follow the shape, right? We can move this up, we can move this down, everything will stay the same. Which is, in my opinion, just a nice procedural way of setting that up. Alright, so let's say we want some thickness there, right? So let's just add, Shift A, a subdivision modifier first. And when we subdivide this, you can see that this is not exactly going as we want, because our mesh, our pizza slices are still separated after we array. We can fix this though by just checking the merge option in our array modifier. That's just gonna merge our closed vertices and just fold that open. We also want to merge the first and the last copy. Alright, fully closed pizza. Beautiful. So in edit mode now, we have a little vertex that we can now change. It is gonna look beautiful, and we can now change whatever we want on this shape. I want these 2 vertices to be a bit closer to the center, for example. So we can press double G, and that is going to move our vertices along their edges, right? You can see it sticks to the edge quite beautifully, like that. Okay, something like this. And let's just add a level of resolution to our subdivisions. There we go. Right, so that's already looking a bit nicer, I'd say. All right, then press A, press E to extrude that up a little bit, like this. Right, and I want my inner parts to be a little bit thinner, because there's weight on the inner parts, right? There's an object placed on top of it, there's weight, so the inner part of the liquid is just going to be a little bit thinner. Like that. Beautiful. And the reason why we're getting these hard edges there is because we still have faces on the insides, right? So press Tab, Alt Z, make sure that you delete these faces that are connected to the neighboring pizza slices, right? Delete faces. And there we go, right? Looking beautifully smooth. All right, so that is already looking quite decent. Perhaps it can be a little bit thicker though. So let's just move this face up a tiny bit like so. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I want to move this edge down slightly as well. Like that. Beautiful. Now I want to scale the entire thing up a little bit, right? How do we do that? Well, if I scale only my empty, it's going to be weird. If I scale only my object, it's going to be weird. So we want to scale them together. So what we can do is just link our empty to our liquid with Ctrl P, set parent to object. Right now, if we scale this, it's also going to scale that empty and everything is going to stay nicely in line. So let's scale that up so it covers the top part of our little cupcake there. And let's move the side here just down like that. So it intersects, it falls nicely on the mesh. And then these two endpoints as well. Move them just down a little bit so they intersect nicely on that mesh. Beautiful. We can even move this up a little bit to give some more thickness. Move these two down a little bit. Move this up a tiny bit. There we go. So we have a little bit of thickness variation here. Beautiful. Make it a bit thicker. We can even move the inner part down a little bit more. There we go. Right, so we already end up with a nice layer of liquid. Right, if you think it's too thin, just don't worry about it. Select the top face and move it up. Right? This is not that hard. Beautiful.
That was part 2 of the tutorial series. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned some new stuff and tips and tricks. If you did like this, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I'd enjoy any one of those. And then I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.